And welcome back to part 15 of Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, where today, after freeing the mannequins from their prison last time, we are going to try and get to their newly developing village, their actual home space, Asakusa. But the only way to get through there is through the Ikebukuro Tunnel, which is a dungeon layout that they kind of reuse a couple times later on, where it's a station that has a tunnel into another station, and that's the dungeon. So we're at this part of the subway station, and then we're going to go through this cave system, and on the other end we'll come out at another tunnel system that it originally connected to. It's kind of like trying to follow the tracks, but not really. But in here is an interesting, not really so much puzzle, but there's 3 mini-bosses that you have to go track down yourself, and if you kill all 3 of them, then access to the main boss appears. But I'm not sure if this is legit, because I've never actually tried. But I always got the impression you can kind of skip it if you don't want to do it. Because you can find the other tracks and just leave on the other side. You don't have to, it doesn't feel like there's any requirement, at least not right this second, to do it. I can imagine there is, later on there'll be something that you'll need to come back for if you don't do it, so you might as well just do it now. And there's the Magatama in it for you as well, so there's no real reason to pass it up. But the thing that might catch you off is, firstly, before you come here, bring light balls and float balls. If you can't find any to buy, you can trade gems for a few more. But you should be able to buy a healthy amount at the Ikebukuro shop. Because when you leave the tracks, you leave the light sources. And so this is what you can see. I love the fact that you can see an outline of Demi-Fiend, where his demonic blood is glowing. You can see his exoskeleton tattoos kind of thing now. Instead of wasting the light ball, I just feel my way. If you hug the north wall, there's a mystical chest there that for me had a life stone, if you could have anything. And then I just feel my way back because there's only one path. It's when we go down the other path that I'll use a light stone, because I'm trying to actually burn out the moon cycle. I'm waiting for it to hit a new moon before I use a float ball so I can make the most of the item, since they always run out on new moons, even if you're one lone phase before it. So you see, on that north path, when you come out of it and check the map, you can see it's an extremely linear thing. Just hug the north wall and you'll find the hole. So now I'm at the point where I have to waste time to try and burn out the moon. And I think I cut till I do. Yeah, I cut out until I hit a new moon, and then proceed on and in. And I use the light balls. So bring float balls as well, for reasons that will make sense later on. There's an Oni. Deep inside, I saw him. I mean, yeah, I'm an Oni too, but he was extra powerful. Here, there's 4 of them. Yeah, there are 3 specialized Onis you can hunt down and take on. And if you kill all 3 of them, a 4th specialized one will appear at the end that will house a reward. Immediately turning onto your left and going into here is the main terminal, so you have free access. But this is one of those main terminals which is one and done. You don't really ever have a reason to come back to this place once you leave here, assuming you don't get rid of all of the threats. The only real thing that is worth mentioning is that there are invisible pit traps in this dungeon. If you walk onto certain tiles, which treat it as like a 1x1 giant square tile. If you step on that tile, sort of like on the first Kalpa when it was in the Labyrinth of Amala, you know, there's that part where there was the square tiles and the ceiling had lights turned off to tell you what square tiles you would drop through. It's a similar deal here. There's no light source to tell you. You've just got to feel it out and work it out for yourself. But certain paths will have drop-throughs. And there's going to be a lot of moments where you will see me turn a direction, maybe go down it to an extent, pick up an item, and then stop and turn around. It's because I know if I go any further, I'll fall through the floor. But there is a number of new encounters here, and most of the enemies here are very physical-based. There's a couple exceptions, because there's always a couple of exceptions, but it's mostly physical-based. So if you've been trying to make a physical-based demonic team, here's a good place to start building some of them up. To get 1 or 2 and start fusing them together to get something better. Man, I've been recording more of the game again, because I put down Guilty Gear Strive for a day to actually do more recording. And I'm really far on. I'm 2 or 3 dungeons away from the end now in my recording. I'm really far in. Oh, here's a spot, I think. I can't remember this well, but I think this is the point where you see I get the item. Yeah, no, that was to tell future me. The reason why I shook the camera left and right, that was me saying no, don't go any further, because that's a pit trap. You'd just fall through the floor there. If you're following along, pay close attention to where I go. Like, I will make a point of mentioning if there's a point I don't go to, but I want to talk about other stuff, so I might not. But as I was saying, I spent a whole day not playing Guilty Gear Strive to record more of this game, and I won't spoil where I am, but I'm literally 3 dungeons away from the end, I think, now. I'm right near the end, and I didn't realise, like, until I started recording it, and like, I was getting to the end of my recording, just about to wrap up, I still had Sarasvati. I wasn't using Sarasvati anymore, but I still had a Sarasvati in my, like, demon lineup. And I was like, why do I still have you? Like, he has good skills, don't get me wrong, but it was like, what? Why are you here? So I fused Sarasvati off. I did quite a fusion hauling, because I realized that I was 3 dungeons away from the end and my compendium was like 25%. And I was like, oh, this is not good. I should have far more demons than this at this point in the game. It's just because I know what demons I want, I just beeline for them and not worry about anything else. But no, you should be making an active effort to have as many demons as you can to experiment with them, to try them out. To be fair, I've never got 100% compendium in this game, and to be fair, the whole level 95 benchmark is part of the reason why. Maybe if I'm just going for the platinum trophy and I stop caring, I'll just buy the remastered DLC where you can just go into a room and it gives you 3 level ups infinitely. But the reason why I didn't buy it is I felt like it defeated the entire point of the game that they added there in that remaster. Like, I could understand buying Dante because it's for the licensing, but beyond that I was a bit like, no thanks. I think I'm topping up because there's a mini boss through here. No, okay, we're not there yet. We're close though, I know we're close to the first of the 3 Onis you can find down here. Oh yeah, because there's a save there, and there's a hazard floor there. Don't go across the hazard floor. Like, the hazard floor, other than the fact it will sound obvious, yeah, it's a floor that will hurt you. It's also the fact that it's got a pitfall in it, so you'll hurt yourself for nothing. So go the long way around. Yeah, come on past me. You go a long way around and go west, and it leads to a door. Oh, I guess I come back for that one then. I wanted to go this way first. But there's another one over there, but I guess I just decided to come back for it. Oh, hello, mannequin. Got separated from my group. There's 4 X-Mantra Oni here. That's scary. They're scary. The leader Oni is going to come out if you defeat the other 3. And he's really scary. In other words, I'm scared. Fair, dude. Fair, dude. And to be fair, so far in my recording, I've yet to have any real big hitches. Like, I was expecting to have a couple real big run-ins, but so far, like, I guess for me, it's more... Oh, there's a pitfall you want to trigger over here, by the way, which is why I just ran straight through. Because it leads you to another area that's just easier to get through here than any other way. But I was expecting at least a couple hitches, but the surprise for me is realizing that I remember more of this game than I realized I did. Because it has been a good 2 years since the last time I properly did a playthrough of this game, because I decided that I'd hold off unless there was ever a remaster of it. It's why I made the joke at the time, like 2 odd years ago, that this was one of those games that I would just drop everything for a Let's Play for if they ever did a remaster, thinking they never would. There's 3 titles that many moons ago I promised if they ever got a remaster or ported to PS4 or 5, I would drop everything to do a Let's Play for. The first was SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, which is what I did. If you guys remember, I did genuinely stop what I was doing and waited until that game came out and then did it. Second was this, which, to be fair, more just worked out because I planned it in advance, and when I looked at what other Let's Plays I was doing, I was like, okay, everything else will be done before it even starts. The third is the Tomb Raider Legend Trilogy. If that HD remaster of the Tomb Raider Legend Trilogy, also there's another pitfall there, so don't take it, ever comes to be, I will play through Legend as soon as I can, solely so I can play through Anniversary as soon as I can afterwards. Because Anniversary is one of my all-time favourite games. But it's time for our first Oni. I've never seen you before, I'm Suki. And if you didn't know, I'm one cool-ass villain. But don't worry, I won't hurt you, so why don't you come over here? No. Haha, you coward. Then die. You come closer, he gets a free shot. Almost all of them will try and do something to you and pretend you're just easy comeuppance. And if you just say, no, fuck off, then you'll just start the fight normally. But all of these guys are just placeholders for the main event, but it doesn't mean don't take them, like, seriously at all. All of these guys, especially on physical attacks, are threats. Which is why you're seeing I'm spending a whole turn here to lay in the buffs and nerfs. Because this guy has B-size, so can double up his turns. And then immediately miss because I lowered his hit innovation. Come on, past me. Start attacking. There we go. But as we're going through this, because I said these mini-bosses, they're really not threats, is an opportunity to talk about E3 so far. Because, as I have constantly said throughout all of this, I record this a day in advance. So for me, it is Monday. So the most recent one that I cared about was Square Enix. So I didn't really watch the PC game show. I watched the Microsoft one, and I watched Square. I watched Ubisoft as well over the weekend, but I can tell you right now, the only reason I watched Ubisoft is on the very slim chance Splinter Cell 7 was announced, and it wasn't, so I don't give a shit. I've never cared for Far Cry. I certainly don't give a shit about Just Dance. Mario and Rabbids 2, I'm sure will be good. And there was that, I think it's called Rider Republic or something like that. That looks alright, to be fair. Like, credit where it's due, it looked like it would be, like, nice fun. I probably won't buy it full price, but if it's, like, dirt cheap for, like, a tenner at some point, like, later on, like, when it goes on sale or something, I'll probably nab it. Like, if it's on, because it looked like it was pretty, like, nice fun. Like, one of those sort of just easy-to-play kind of just, like, enjoy it for what it is kind of fun games. But everything else could not care less. But that's a similar deal with Ubisoft and has been for years. Like, Quarantine, I knew it wasn't going to be my thing. I enjoyed Siege, to be fair. I do enjoy Siege. I don't play it that much anymore, but I do enjoy Siege quite a bit. But Siege, but single player with some Left 4 Dead elements in it, I'm like, no, if I want to play Left 4 Dead, I'll either fire it up or wait for Back 4 Blood. The Microsoft Bethesda conference, it looks like Bethesda have finally ditched that old engine with Starfield. Like, don't quote me on that, but it looks like they put it on a new engine, which they fucking need to, because that engine was becoming more and more problematic the longer it was kept alive. The biggest evidence was the fact that every single glitch that was in Elder Scrolls or Fallout would come back and would usually be more prominent the very next game, because there was more things tacked on just on top of the engine without actually adding or cleaning up anything. But it does look like it's taking a new direction. I still have zero interest, because I might be an outlier of this, but the only Bethesda titles I like are the ones not made by Bethesda in-house. The last actual Bethesda in-house title I liked was Morrowind. I didn't like Oblivion at all. I could never really get into Skyrim, it just wasn't my cup of tea. I straight up didn't like Fallout 3. Loved New Vegas, but they didn't make New Vegas, Obsidian did. And I thought Fallout 4 was one of the most boring fucking games I ever played in my life. And I just did not touch 76, because why would I? Everything leading up to that game was painting its disaster, and it was a disaster. Like, I think everyone knows the story of the entire first year of that game was a goddamn mess. I've heard that they've cleaned it up quite a bit since then, but no, too little too late for me, sorry. I'm not interested. But all their third-party stuff, I love Evil Within. Although I've talked about it at length that I want to do Evil Within 2 at some point. It's just finding a good time to do it. It'll probably be after the 7 remake, because there's no rush, and everything else I want to do is kind of taking prominence. So it'll probably, might even be early next year I cover that game. But we'll see, we'll see. Halo does look a lot better than what they showed last year. And I was very concerned as well, considering the whole delayed a whole year, like lead developer left and whatnot. But it does look a lot better. I was kind of hoping that a beta or demo would get announced, but they didn't announce it there. I still think one's coming before its launch, but they just didn't announce one there. And when it does, it'll be an excuse for me to fire up my collecting dust Xbox One to try it out, since they said the multiplayer will be free. The campaign of the Halo games I've long since drifted from. Like, that's one of those things that I am very much like a Bungie stickler for. Like, I enjoy Halo 4's campaign, but even then I didn't feel like it was as strong as some of the older ones. And Halo 5 is fucking Halo 5. Halo 5 was not good. And so I'm kind of drifted from the Halo story. Like, I'll pay attention to it, and I'll probably watch Achievement Hunter when they inevitably do a lasso run of it, but outside of that, I'm not fussed. But I am curious to see what they do with the multiplayer, to see what they've learned from the past ones, if anything. Because that grapple hook does look fun. Even if that's kind of becoming the thing a little bit, of let's make it so everyone has a grapple hook to pull themselves around. It looks like Halo's doing the more just do what you want with it approach, because I think it's the way you should do it with any grapple hook. Make it so if you point at it and press the button, you're taken to it. It doesn't matter what. It's just you're going to it. I think that's always the best way to handle it. Also, when you're getting later on in this fight, it does pick up Dragon Eye instead of Beast Eye, so it'll get 4 turns instead of 2. But if you've laid in all the buffs and nerfs, that means nothing. It's going to be missing more often than not anyway. Also, it just died from a counter, so add that to the list of bosses dead from attacking me and getting a counter hit. But it's like, but it does look a lot better than what they showed last year, and it certainly looks a lot cleaner than what 343 have put out beforehand. Like, I still fire up the Master Chief Collection every now and then and play that online, because I still genuinely enjoy Halo. Halo's one of the very few franchises I still enjoy playing online. As some of you might have realised if you've looked at my legacy of what games I've Let's Played, I really don't care for online games that much. But Halo's always kind of been an outlier. I always find myself really enjoying Halo every time I play it, even if it's 4 or 5's multiplayer. Even if I have problems with 5 as a whole, 5's multiplayer is still got the spine of Halo, even if it does a lot of things very different, so I still got some enjoyment out of it. It's just Halo 3, Halo Reach, and Halo 4 are usually what I go to if I'm in the mood for Halo multiplayer, and because, you know, all 3 of them are on Master Chief Collection, it's kind of rude not to. And with crossplay as well, it's really easy to get into a game now, which is something that wasn't the case for a long while on Xbox One, where, you know, the game really didn't do that well at first because of some of its technical problems, which thankfully they've since ironed out for the most part. Surprised it took them as long as it did to add file sharing, but that's a factor for another day. That's a discussion for later. And to be fair, the Halo franchise is something I want to cover one day. I absolutely want to cover. I want to do Halo 1, 2, 3, and Reach. I won't do ODST because I personally just wasn't fond of it. And I think, like, if I went into 4, I would spend... It's sort of like when I went into Devil May Cry 2. I'd spend too much of it bitching about 343 than I would actually be enjoying the game. But I'd love to do the Halo trilogy. I'd love to do Reach. The problem is that recording off the Xbox One straight to YouTube... The only reason why I've ever done 2 videos on the Xbox One is, well, watch them. The frame rate is shit. Because when you upload them, you don't upload them straight to YouTube. You have to upload them to a third party, and then from that third party put them on YouTube. And by the time you do that, the frame rate's gone. And maybe if I ever pick up a Series X, which I'm sure I will eventually, it won't be so much of a problem, and like it'll be able to like suffice more of the frame rate, and then from there, I can maybe do something there. But I'm in no rush to pick up a Series X because it took me half a lifetime to get a PS5 anyway. But other than that, Back 4 Blood I am interested in. I've heard that the beta test was a little clunky, but that's something that I can imagine will get ironed out, because it does still look good to me. It looks like what a lot of people have been asking for since Left 4 Dead stopped existing, because Valve stopped making games. And to be fair, like, although not all of it was my thing, I think Xbox Bethesda had a really strong show. Stalker 2 looked interesting. I'd never picked up Stalker 1 and didn't really care to, but that showcase for it, it felt like as it went on, there was more mystery to it. Like, when the trailer first started, I was like, oh, here we go, first-person shooter, whatnot. But as it went on, it got more and more interesting. So I was like, okay, sure. Battlefield, I think it's like 2048? I think it's called 2048. I think that's the year it's like going to be based in. It looks alright. Battlefield as a series was never my thing, because it feels like you go way too long before you bump into someone a lot of the time. But the whole 128 player thing will hopefully get rid of some of that problem. Also, I pick up Fog Breath and get rid of Secunda, because Fog Breath is just better Secunda, because it lowers hit evasion by 2 levels on the enemy. But it looks alright. I'm sure it'll be fun. I just hope it doesn't get EA-ified as heavily as it usually does. You know what I mean? Like, I'm expecting it to be loot boxes and microtransactions through the fucking roof. As much as they pretend to be the good guys and like, oh, we've learned, we won't do that. Like, no, bullshit. FIFA still does it every year without a single care in the world. Don't kid at EA. We know you're the greediest companies under the sun, and the only way you're ever stopping is through arrestment, not through complaining. Until fucking head honcho is straight up arrested, there's nothing stopping him. Because if the company ever goes down, he'll just retire of his wealth. And the company's not going down anytime soon anyway. Also, that fucking sucked. I was like, oh, mana gain. And it's like, you want to change the skill? And it's like, yeah, it wouldn't change mana gain. Which mana gain, all that is that you have more MP than usual on the demon. And that's why I have a little shudder. But no, it gets rid of it and replaces it with fucking Berserk, which is a terrible skill. 27 needed guidance? No, I see. Well, I'm supposed to say yes. Very well. Take this. Oh, that was worth it. Then you get a free light ball, which for how the fact that this dungeon's pitch black, that's actually kind of nice. The only thing that isn't dark are actually the door lights, which is weird because there's no light on the other side of the door. Look, there's a crack of light from the door, but there's no light on the other side of it when it goes pitch black. Like, this glowing floor isn't glowing, it's just damaged floor. But there's a safe terminal here as well, so you've got your next breakpoint. I'm trying to think, what else is there? Hades coming to consoles other than the Switch. That was amazing. The most of that, I was like, oh, fuck, yes, because that's just been Steam and Switch for the longest time. The fact that's going to be on Xbox Series X, and it was confirmed as well, PS5. Bring it on. I am 110% down for going through Hades again. I am 110% down. That game's amazing. It's a reason why it was a contender for Game of the Year, because it is legendary, and it deserved the Game of the Year, if I'm honest. As much as I love the 7 remake, it absolutely deserved Game of the Year, and not The Last of Us show. I'm trying to think what else. Because there was a few things that were interesting. Oh yeah, that brand new IP that they should have right at the end. I still have no idea what that game's really trying to be about. Like, it looks alright, I guess, but it was a bit of a dry show ender for how good I felt most of Xbox and Bethesda's was. But now on to the one that I was actually the most looking forward to, and that was the Square Enix one. As we get to our second one, Kin-Key. What do you want? I'm Kin-Key, you filthy dog. Not the one you're not that version of the word. It's Kin-Key, not Kin-Key. Sure, I'll introduce myself. What? You're that? Damn demon hunter freak! Survival of the fittest! I will hunt you down! Anyway. But just, I'm not gonna people that were outright hating on it, I think are really overstepping, because it wasn't that it was bad, it just spent too long on some of its properties and spent too short on some of the others. And that was where the problem was. Guardians of the Galaxy, the game, I'm sure will be fine. It looks alright, but they spent 23 minutes on it. And that was just no. In a conference, the only reason we let Final Fantasy VII Remake go for as long as it was is because it was a game literally a lifetime in the making. And so everyone was super fucking hyped for 7 Remake. And so the idea of it dominating 20 minutes of the show, everyone was like, yeah, sure, go for it. Everyone was 110% on board with it being the most dominant factor of the show, because everyone already knew what it was. Everyone was already super stoked, and everyone had been waiting for it, any news of it, for years. So the fact that it was getting 20 minutes of the show was a godsend. That was like the best decision Square Enix should do. But Guardians of the Galaxy is announced out of nowhere. The cast do not shut the fuck up, which is something that's becoming more and more prominent in the industry, and something that never stops being annoying to me. Characters don't need to be talking while you're playing. Unless your name is Dante, shut up. It's the only way to put it. Unless you're Dante making a joke, or Lara Croft telling me what everything in the scenery is, I don't want to hear you talk. Shut up. I want to just play the game. And it's something that is, like, Guardians of the Galaxy, and among other things, just won't stop. Everyone just won't shut up. Everyone just talks constantly when you're trying to play, and you're like, please stop. But it went on for 23 minutes, and it was the weakest part of the show because it went on for so long. If it was just that trailer and then they moved on, everyone would have been like, yeah, alright, it looks alright, and then not worried about it. But because it went on for so long, everyone was bored of it by the time it wrapped up. And so I think that will just hurt sales. And I think the only reason they're pushing for it so heavily is because they're trying to redeem the sale of Marvel Avengers. Which, to be fair, also got a couple minutes in the spotlight, but they didn't spend as much time on it as I thought they were going to do. I was expecting that to take like a good 10 minutes, but they kind of went, oh, here's what's coming up, okay, bye. But I want to talk about the actual thing that hurt me the most, and that was the fact that they announced the Final Fantasy pixel art-based remasters, which is the thing I've been asking for ages. If you've been with the channel for a while, I have said I want them to do the first 6 Final Fantasies in the collection, and I don't want them to be off the 3D remasters. I want them to be on the traditional, like, sprite work, or make it look like the PSP version of 4, which had the cleanest goddamn sprite work I've ever seen in a Final Fantasy. They're doing that, and I was like, yeah, I was getting super hyped, and then they just dropped the ball at the end and say, oh, it's going to be on phones and Steam. And if it's phone and Steam, that means it's going to be either episodic or it's going to be built for mobile, and they just threw it on PC for extra money. It's not going to be a proper built-up remaster. Or at least that's the impression I got. It is my deepest hope that after all, like, so I think it's going to be episodic. I think it's going to be like Final Fantasy 1 and then a couple of months later Final Fantasy 2 sort of thing. That's going to be like staggered. It's not going to be all 6 in one go. But once 6 is out, then hopefully they'll just do a bundle together and put all of them together on console. And I know everyone, like, it's almost definitely going to be on Switch, but I'm still going to hold hopes it's going to be on PlayStation, aka a console I own. It's like the thing that hurt me the most with Octopath Traveler. That game's literally on everything but PlayStation. And it's like, please, for the love of God, it's on Xbox Game Pass, it's on Switch, it's on PC, put it on fucking PlayStation, and it's just not there. You know, the console known for being the JRPG machine is just not getting the JRPGs for no good reason now. And it's like, please, for the love of God, put it on there. And give up the Octopath and give us the Final Fantasy 1 through 6 on PlayStation. It's almost definitely going to be on Switch because they know that's where a big chunk of the money is going to be. But please, for the love of God, put it on PlayStation. Because I will I'm not going to make that whole, I will do it as soon as it drops, but I will absolutely put Final Fantasy 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the menu of like games I'll do. Well, 3 would be a maybe because it depends what balance they based it on. If they base it on the original game's balance, I'll probably dodge it because the Crystal Tower is a nightmare. But if it's instead based on the DS and PSP version, where the Crystal Tower is a hell of a lot fairer and well-rounded, that you can get through it at a much lower level than comfortably too, then yeah, sure, I'll pick it up because I think it's the best of the original trilogy. But the original Final Fantasy is iconic. 2 is not my thing. I didn't like 2. I didn't like what 2 changed to the formula. But 3 I really liked. 4 is the Final Fantasy I got into and is one of my all-time favourite games, so of course that's on the menu. I'll probably do 4 first and then go back and do 1. Which, if you think's kind of weird, well, if you've been with this channel, you know I've done 15 and 12, so it's not like I'm doing the Final Fantasies in order anyway. I just did the ones I like. But I would do 4. 5 I feel like gets undercut a lot. It's hard, but I feel like it gets undercut and ignored a lot, so I'd love to go through that and kind of showcase what it actually did that was kind of unique and special that made it stand out, despite also being really difficult. And 6, I think, is the one that might end up sparking a little discussion with you lot, because I'm not the biggest fan of 6. I enjoy 6 a lot, don't get me wrong, I really enjoy 6 in a lot of ways, but its flaws are very glaring to me. And maybe it's because I came back to it later. But 6 is one of the, especially the original 6 on the SNES, is one of the buggiest Final Fantasies in existence. Like, the evasion stat straight up does not work in the game, for goodness sake. Like, it's an extremely bug-ridden game, and it really held it back for me when I went through it, compared to when I went through 4 and 5. I think 4 was the way it works for me, in my childhood, I went Final Fantasy 4, Final Fantasy 5, but then I didn't get access to 6 straight away, and so I went 7, 8, 9, 10, and then later on did 1, 2, 3, and 6. So I'm out of order, but keep in mind I was born in 1999, so like those games on the SNES were harder to access. It was just because my family had one that I was introduced to 4 at that early age, and fell in love with it. But this over here, when you come over here, this door over here, there's a strong power beyond the door, and you can't, and it just kicks you out. That's the door you need to go to once you've dealt with all the Onis here, which is why there's a save point back around the corner. But you need to go all the way around it, because you go all the way around it, on the other side is the train tracks, which is your way out of the dungeon entirely if you don't want to do the last one. But there's another track there, like beyond it. If you follow that track beyond it, you'll find the last one. And then from there you can just backtrack and deal with the last Oni here. Which, to be fair, the last Oni, once you know what you're doing, it's the easiest one of the lot, but the fight takes forever. The reason why this video is 48 minutes is because of that fight. Because I wanted to do all of this dungeon in one go. I didn't want to break it up. Okay, that was me double checking my notes. That it is indeed the train tracks coming up. Me just slightly pausing there. And I think this is one of the last locations in the game where I don't have mana refill on my whole party. So I'll get to stop using chakra drops soon. So I've got mana refill on Saravasti, I think. Actually, I think I've got on Horus and not Saravasti. I think it's the other way around. But by the end of here, I have it on everyone, if I don't already. I haven't been paying too much attention, but... Actually, maybe I do have it on Sarasvati, because look at my MP. Unless that was what I just restored, and I'm really not paying attention. I thought I restored my health with items. Anyway. But yeah, I'll obviously do 4, and so I'll do. If I'm gonna do them in order, like the order I'll probably do them in, I'll probably do 4, 1, 6, 5, and 3. Because as much as I prefer 3 over 1 in terms of the original trilogy, 1 is I've got more to talk about because of what it's set in stone for the entire franchise to follow. Like I'd want to talk about 1, so I'd probably do 4, 6, 1, 1, 5, 3 then, maybe. No, there's no jumping. I could change my mind at any moment. I might get to it and say, actually, I want to wait on 4, because to be honest, it wasn't actually that long ago I went through 4 again, because it's one of my all-time favorites. I go through it somewhat regularly, and it hasn't been too long. So if its release ends up being real close, I might not. I might do 6 or 1 instead, and then go do 4 later. Which is why I'm not making any commitments right now and saying I will definitely do this or I'll definitely do that. It'll come when it comes. But coming back through here on the other side, there's a hole in the wall that will lead you round to the correct path. Oh, hello. And you want to speak to you. You know, kill. Friends, a piece of gib. Okay, sure. Join the party. I'm ashamed to admit, most of the demons I've got are ones that I just punch into a corner and they say, please let me join. And not ones I tried to negotiate with, because my negotiation attempts fail more often than they succeed. Especially because there's a lot of moments where, especially later on, I'll go to try and negotiate with a demon. They'll go, yeah, I like you, but you're not strong enough, goodbye. And it's because of my level. Like, they're much higher level than me. But here's the last one, Fuki. You must have some time on your hands making it all the way down here. Give me some cash and I can hook you up with some hot babes. No, I'll give you an ass kicking. I'm sorry, please don't hurt me. Come on, I'm begging you. Yeah, right. Take this, loser. To be fair, it gives me an opportunity to practice my voice for R4 when I get to Neptunia Reverse. Because I am actually going to do the Skeletor piss take voice again for her. Because I just... even though it's the game where she is the central villain, the original, she's still a shit villain that it should not be taken seriously. So I will still be going through the whole game going, yes! But other than that, I want to say Secret of Mana is the one that's getting remastered. Like, I'm not into the Mana series at all, so I'm happy for you guys, but I didn't really pay too much attention to it. But I know I'm dodging the big one here with Final Fantasy Origin, which the demo's up, but no one could really access it. It's a corrupted file that seemingly corrupted file that they uploaded. So I'm gonna wait on that until I hear it's good to go, and then actually start doing something on it. Hopefully, I can do a video of it and just give my thoughts and feelings. I'm immediately disappointed right off the bat though on the costume design. I know everyone's brought it up, but if you've ever looked into Final Fantasy 1's art design and how it's been represented ever since, Final Fantasy 1 is extremely colourful. The best thing going for it is that Final Fantasy 1 have extremely extravagant, colourful armor sets that are unique and stand out. Where the game was still trying to find an identity for itself, it was completely different than what the series that came afterwards was about. And I love the colour scheme of it. I love the Warrior of Light's blue armour of the white horns and the big light shield and everything. I love how colourful and bright and extravagant everything is in Final Fantasy 1. So for them to announce it and it just be the 3 characters on Final Fantasy 15 Comrades, like 3 random generated character creators from Comrades, I was like, that's terrible. It's just some dude in a t-shirt and jeans in this fantasy setting, and it's even more blatant when Garland shows up, and Garland looks like he's out of Final Fantasy 1. Yeah, it's grittier than he used to look, but he still looks like straight out of Final Fantasy 1 properly. And yet there's these 3 jackasses in a t-shirt coming at him that look like they've just been picked up on the bus stop on the way there that are fighting him. And I've seen the screenshots where it shows him in different armor, but it still just looks like very westernized armor, and it doesn't look like Final Fantasy to me. And I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping when I play the demo, it plays like Neo, which is what everyone was hoping for when it was leaked. When it was leaked, every single person under the sun was like, oh, the Neo and Ninja Gaiden team are working on it? That's amazing. And it doesn't look like that's what it's going to be anymore. It looks like it's going to be an action game, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't look like it's going to be Neo or Ninja Gaiden-y influence. It's not going to be lightning fast or super difficult and like precise. It just looks like a generic action game with the Final Fantasy coat of paint, which I really hope that's not it, but only time will tell. It said it's not out till next year, so things have time to change and like clean out. But I remember like the alpha test of Neo 1 I don't know if any of you guys remember that very early alpha test. That game was rough. That early alpha, that was extremely rough around the edges. But when the official game finally came out, I had a blast with it. I really enjoyed it. It's a shame I lost all my footage of it because I was recording my victory attempt of every boss, and I beat every single boss. Then later on, when I was like, oh, I should really start uploading some of them, I'd lost all the footage. They'd all just gone. I was like, well, oh, never mind. Which is why I only did like 4 or 5 bosses and then got rid of them. I can't remember if I deleted the videos or whether they're still there or not, but I just stopped doing them. Because that was years ago. That was when Neo 1 just came out. And Neo 1 is another game that's maybe at some point on the list for me to do a Let's Play, but that's a strong maybe. Because Neo is a very, very difficult game. And not in the set, like, a lot of people say, oh, it's the Dark Souls hard, but I've gone on record of saying that my issue with Dark Souls is not that it's hard, it's that it's unbalanced in places. A lot of people say, oh, it's hard but fair, and then you like Ornstein and Smo, and it's like, well, no. If you go in as a magic user, good luck. If you go in as a ranged attacker only, good luck. Like, it's far, far fucking harder with certain setups than other, and it really throws you out the door if you're not prepared to break your neck for some of them to do what the game wants. But it is, for the most part, actually not that difficult. It just doesn't hold your hand. It expects you to find things out for yourself. Whilst Neo was actually a hard game that was actually out for blood at every opportunity. Most things there would kill you in 1, if not 2 hits. Especially if you went for the light armor. If you went for the light armor, enjoy the second half of the game being every boss will one-shot you. But you get to move like a lightning bolt every time. But when you come through here, the last one shows up. Before you start this fight, make sure your moon cycle is at a full moon. And you'll understand why in a second. My name is Ongyoki. Are you the one who slew my partners and awakened me? I sliced and diced them. Insolent fool. Learn your weakness through my illusions. The way this fight works, and this will only work if you come in with under a full moon, is that he will duplicate himself, but the real one has a shadow. But if you fight this boss when it's not a full moon, the shadow won't be there. So here you can recognize what the real one is, and it resets his pattern. Next turn, he'll use Replicate again, and maybe do 1 basic attack. And that's the entire fight if you're on full moon. You just watch where he is, and attack him. But this fight takes fucking forever. This guy has a lot of defense and a lot of health. So he's just gonna start up again. Try and boost his physical attack. It'll boost all his physical stats, but it means very little because he won't be doing much to hurt you. Then he'll use Replicate, which is why there was a slight lag because he has to register what one he's going to be. He's the first one. So when you're ready to attack him, if you attack the wrong one, they will all counter you and it will hurt. And then you just continue, and that's the entire pattern. But I will try out Final Fantasy Origin and get hopefully a good idea of what it's supposed to be. And like I said, even if it's rough around the edges, I remember Neo 1's alpha and how rough that was, yet how clean the game came out afterwards. So I'm really not, I wouldn't be too upset if it's really rough. If it looks like there's core mechanics in the game that are straight up hurting it, that'll be a different thing. But if it's just the game that isn't as precise or as clean as it should be, that's something I imagine will be cleaned up by the time it's out. Because I am still very much interested in it, and I probably will still pick it up day 1. Because I'm curious to see what's going to happen. But that was kind of it with Square. It's annoying. I get it, but it's annoying that Final Fantasy 16 didn't show up. Well, I know they've got their partnership with Sony, so it'll probably show up in the next State of Play instead. But it was still a little bit like, Square, this is your conference. Why don't you use your titles? And I won't forgive them for the fact that for the 25th anniversary of Tomb Raider, they're still doing jack shit. Despite how heavily they've been advertising they want to do something for Tomb Raider, the fact that so far we've had nothing is... Oh, I say that, I correct myself, we've had a cookbook, is ridiculous. Like, come on, give us that remastered collection. We know what you're doing. It's like the worst kept secret is that we know you're doing a remastered collection, so give it to us. We're just praying to God that this remastered collection isn't of the reboot trilogy, because you've already shoved that down our throats like 7 times now. We want the Legend trilogy back, or the original saga back. Either or we'll be happy with. Both preferably. It would be great if you did like an ultimate collection and it was all 8 of them. Like the original, no, all 9 even, because I forgot about Angel of Darkness. Even though I don't think Angel of Darkness is as bad as people say it is. But the original 5, Angel of Darkness and the Legend Trilogy, put that in the collection, please. And I say that, like, I am one of those people that do defend Angel of Darkness. It is definitely not as good as it could be, but there's a lot there that I think was actually really fun and unique for Tomb Raider. That made it work in its own way, and for me, I really enjoyed. Even when I come back to it today, yeah, its faults are more apparent as I've got older, but it's still really fun. I still have an absolute blast when I play it. It's just incomplete, unfortunately. The game ends a lot shorter than it should because of how rushed they were, alongside the fact that their team was split in half because Chronicles was being worked on at the same time. And Chronicles is the Tomb Raider I think actually did suffer. Like, Chronicles is the one that I really, like, struggle to get into. Like, I enjoy it enough, but I feel like it was the one that was hurt worse than Angel of Darkness, because Angel of Darkness I still found fun. I said, even though I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, and it's definitely a very flawed game, I still enjoy it for what it is. Be wary of evil gaze, by the way. It will never kill you, but it will put your health to 1. And if you're not really paying attention, because let's be honest, this boss fight can be really boring when you know what you're doing, unless you're really, like, strong on keeping his defense down, this fight takes forever. If he throws it out and you're not paying attention, he can just bop you next turn and kill you. But come on, guys, like, come on, just give us Tomb Raider. I'll say preferably the Legend Trilogy, but ideally all of them. Give us all of them. Because that would be a field day. I'd dedicate some time to do like a Tomb Raider marathon if they did all of them. I'd probably do the Legend Trilogy first, because like, it's an awkward thing. It's in the same vein of why I haven't touched Uncharted 3 or 4, despite the fact I covered 1 and 2. It's because, like, more so Uncharted 4, I don't really like the Uncharted games after the first 2. Like, Uncharted 3, I love the gameplay of 3, and I love the environments of 3, I just don't like the story. And 4, as some of you may know, I straight up don't like 4 full stop. I don't like the story and how melodramatic it is. I don't like the gameplay and how stiff and overly realistic they made it for a fucking action game. The music felt like a step down. The priorities felt like were mismanaged. And I can't help but feel like it would have been a million times better if Amy Hennig made it, instead of Neil Druckmann fucking forcing his way in and saying, we're doing it my way because I said so. And that's not even coming as someone who didn't like Last of Us. I've said before, Last of Us wasn't my thing, but I at least appreciated what it was trying to do. But Uncharted 4 was just not fun to me. When I went through it, I was like, wow, okay. They really went this direction with it, huh? And so I don't really want to continue it. And it's not to the same extent, but it's going to be similar with the Legend Trilogy because of Underworld. Tomb Raider has a bit of an infamous trend where every time they have a new era, they eventually say, we want to do a much darker and grittier Tomb Raider. And that's the one that gets rushed by their publisher for no good reason, and it ends up like slightly falling under the mark of what it could have been. It happened with Angel of Darkness. It was darker and more ambitious, and it got rushed against their will by the publisher. Underworld, darker, more ambitious, got rushed by its publisher. Shadow the Tomb Raider, darker, more ambitious, got rushed by its publisher. I think of those 3, Shadow got away with it the most. The only real thing that looks rough and stilted on Shadow is the fact that it has that Deus Ex side quest conversation thing where like the characters barely move when they talk. Like, they feel like they're really not like moving whatsoever. They look very stiff the whole time. But that didn't really bother me because I still think Shadow is the best of the reboot trilogy as a whole, despite its problems. But Underworld suffered. A lot of people tell me that Underworld's like absolutely amazing and god tier, and it's like the ultimate sin of the Legend trilogy. And I always can't help but feel like, have you played the other 2? Because they're eons better. Like, Underworld, the problem with Underworld is that its mechanics are... They tried to port all of its mechanics from one engine to the other, 1-to-1, and it ended up making them very finicky. And there's a lot of instances where you'll make a jump that you know you're... Not only can you make, but you're supposed to make, and Lara just won't register it and you'll fall to your demise. Or you'll aim at something, shoot at it, and Lara will just auto shoot or target something else. And you're like, okay, something's not going on right here. But then it was also evident with the whole fact that you go onto the same ship twice. But they just reuse content. Like, that game, its rushedness wasn't subtle in some places. But I still enjoy it for what it is. It's just, it's the one that I think suffered a lot more than people pretend. But that being said, I never got around to trying out the DLC, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the DLC fixed everything. And if they did a remastered collection, I would like to fucking think they would come with all of its old DLC content. Because it'd be ridiculous for it to not. Activision. Modern Warfare 1 remastered. Where they charge you twice for the fucking DLC. You saw through my illusion. Will this be the last I see of the world? Once you're about halfway through the fight, he will start changing it up a little bit, but really not much. You'll still be very reliant on the illusions. It's just every now and it's just going to be attacking a little bit more often. But it's really not something you can't handle if you're just paying attention. So that's the only thing, just pay attention. If the shadow's on the fourth one of the four, it might be a little difficult to spot because your HUD gets in the way. But that also in of itself gives away it's there if you can't see it on the other three. You're like, wait, it must be on the fourth one. It's just you'll find yourself being ever so slightly more cautious. And I use a Dakaja rock here just because I can try and make more of a push to kill this thing sometime today. Because this fight, let's say, it just goes on for so long. But Legend is amazing and fully finished. It doesn't feel like it was cutting any corners. Anniversary is the peak of the entire franchise in my opinion. And it's still one of my all-time favorites. So I put it like 11th on my list. It's like I just absolutely adore that game. That's the reason why I want to do Legend so bad. So I can I'll almost immediately go straight into Anniversary afterwards. Because I know that game the back of my hand. But then after that, who knows? At some point I'll do Rise of the Tomb Raider, I promise. But I know I did the first game in the reboot trilogy. And the reason why I did it was solely so I could open the door for me to do Rise and Shadow later on. But they got put off solely because of all this rumor mill. Of the Tomb Raider Ultimate Experience last summer. Which that brand name still exists, but that domain name never got pulled down or anything. That still absolutely exists. And with how much the Tomb Raider Twitter has been been putting out, there's so much more to announce this year that's coming your way, etc., etc. Like I'm almost willing to bet it's coming. It's just when. But if that hadn't leaked or hadn't even slightly murmured up in existence, I would have probably at least done Rise by now. I don't know what I would have done in it, like outside of it, but I probably would have picked up and done Rise by now. But as being said, the boss is finally done, and we get another level up. Hooray! I put my vitality up, so it's now on 16 or technically 18, and we get Daisojo's main skill. We get Prayer. Prayer, as I've said before, is salvation, but you can only use it in battle. So it's a full heal, not heal set amount of health, fully heals all health, party-wide, and removes status conditions. But the only trade-off is that you can only use it during combat, but you know that's when you're probably going to be using it anyway. When you're done, don't backtrack out the room to save. Go into the next room first, because there's a cube that's not glowing in the corner that holds the Magatama Marukuma, or Marukumo, I think. And then there's also a bead here, so you might as well. Then you can backtrack and go save. Which gives you nulling skills and like element nullifying skills. So if you want your immunities, that's a good one to have. But I'm gonna wrap this up. But it'll probably be more E3 talk after the Capcom one, because that's the next one I'm kind of looking forward to. And Nintendo, but we'll see. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up now. So next time on Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, we're going to go to Asakusa. But until then, you guys take care now. Peace.